Hey everybody, welcome to IT Live. This month, this episode, we're doing everything on Google Drive. This is Google Drive, I should say Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Slides, everything Google Workspaces, okay? So that's what we're doing this month. That's what we're doing in this IT Live. As usual, you can always ask questions, even if it's not about our topic. So if you do come with questions and you're like, I want to know about whatever, last month we did email, right? If you have a question about our email series, go ahead and throw that in the chat. We have Kamran with us, and he is actually monitoring the chat, and I'll throw to him if he texts me and says that somebody has a question. But what I'd like to do right now is, as we always get started this way, let us know where you're coming from, what your role is, what are some things that you'd like to learn. Okay, so what is your role, where are you coming from, and maybe some things you'd like to learn. Put that in the chat, and we're going to throw a little bit after our introduction here. Okay, the way that we're going to do today is we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping in the beginning, 2 to 3 minutes. We're going to go through and then we're going to start on our content. We're going to talk about Google Drive, Google Docs, and then a little bit of Google Slides today. Okay, as we go through in between each topic, I'm going to just talk a little bit about what we have coming up with IT, some other ways that you can get resources for all of the screen reader topics, really. All right, so the first thing that I want to mention today is that, of course, as with a lot of our content, this is with multiple screen readers. So if just because you're using JAWS and I'm using NVDA, remember that these are all going to be Google specific key commands. So it doesn't really matter what screen reader you're using. If you're using JAWS, NVDA, Chromebox, VoiceOver for Mac, all of these commands that we're going to go over today are going to be the same regardless. Okay, so that's the first reminder. The second reminder is that make sure that if you do have problems with some of these commands, that you switch those modes, okay? Remember, NVDA and JAWS have those two different modes. With NVDA, it's going to be the NVDA key and space, and I'll show that to you as we get into the demo to switch your mode if the key commands don't work. And then for JAWS, it's going to be escape if the key commands don't work. Or if you know about PC cursor, you can turn on or off that PC cursor to make key commands work too. I'll show you that while we get into our demo. And if you do have any questions about that, let us know in the chat, okay? But other than that, remember to ask questions. Remember that this is a live event, so that's the reason we do these live events. And I'll kind of jump right into our content, okay? Sweet. It looks like we have some comments or questions. Kamran, you want to share those with us?
Yes, so Tabitha Wyatt says hello, and she's from Greeley, Colorado, and she says, I am a Brailleist and also teach technology to our students.
Awesome. I love it. Probably great to have you. I love having Brailleist here. And sounds like you're teaching technology. So sounds like you're in the right place. Welcome. Awesome. Okay, cool. And yeah, we'll move right into our content here. We're going to start with Google Drive. Now, before I even start our demo here, I want to talk a little bit about what even is Google Drive and why is it important, right? So what is Google Drive? When I explain it to students or explain it to people that are a little bit unfamiliar with what it is, I talk about it like a flash drive, right? And even if you have a flash drive with you, it's a great way to introduce Google Drive, saying, hey, I'm going to take a file on this computer. I'm going to plug this flash drive in, put it on the flash drive, and then move it to another computer. Google Drive is exactly like that, except on the internet, right? So we can put a file up into Google Drive and then go to a completely different computer and get that file. It's pretty cool. Now, if you're a vision professional and you're wondering, how do we even use Google Drive? What are the possible use cases of Google Drive? Take a look at way back when the pandemic first started. We started a series called TV Eyes at Home. And in that series, we talk about how to use Google Drive as kind of a TVI, right? To transfer files between students and parents and you and their teachers, right? With the use case of a shared drive. We're going to show you this in this demo today, but if you're interested, Kamran's going to drop that link for TV Eyes at Home in the chat so you guys have that available to you to go back and watch, okay? It's a really great series. It kind of breaks down everything step by step. So it's another great free resource for you all to have, okay? Awesome. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to start sharing my screen here, and I'm going to turn on NVDA. Remember, just because I have NVDA on does not mean that this is not going to work with JAWS, and I'll show you that in a sec too. Let me share my screen, make sure my sound is shared. Boom, and I'm in a kind of a demo drive here. There's a couple of resources in here just to kind of show you guys what Drive is about. But the first thing that you want to do, obviously I'm logged in here. The first thing that you want to do is I want you, if you can visually, take a look at our my Drive section. And if you can see my pointer, you see I have two folders here. Now, this drive, and I can actually show you if I go to shared with me, is in what's called grid view, right? Where it's not a list of documents like one after the other. It's in this like formatted grid where there's columns and rows, okay? And it's not the greatest. There's two different views in drives, right? There's this grid view and there's also a list view, right? Now, if you have had any experience with a screen reader, you know that lists are always going to be easier to navigate for us than grids. And so my recommendation to you is to change this from grid view to list view before you even start doing anything. I promise it's going to be a lot easier. Why? Well, once we get in here, if we're in grid view, we're going to have to move right and left and up and down if we're in grid view, right? That's just a lot more effort to try to find what we're trying to find, right? If we're in list view, all we got is up and down, all right? And I'm going to show you, I'm going to turn on NVDA. I'm going to show you list view, and then you'll kind of see, you know, why why grid view and list view are so different, why list view is better. Kamran, it sounds like we have some questions in the chat.
Yes, we have a comment actually from Libby
Awesome.
Hansen, who says hello, and I am an assistive technician and paraprofessional in Utah. Thank you for the link.
Awesome. 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 Welcome from Utah. I know we got a good relationship with them. So glad that you can join us. Let us know if you have any questions as we go through. Awesome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on NVDA here. And hopefully we can hear it. Kamran, if we can't hear it, just let me know.
Taskbar.
All right. I'm going to make sure my program focus is switched to the window I'm on right now. Remember, that's Alt and Tab, holding down Alt, pressing Tab until I'm on the right window.
Tasks, My Drive, Google Chrome, row 1, column 1 of 4.
That sounds
My
right.
Drive, Google.
I'm in Google Drive. And now to switch from grid view to list view, it's really easy. I'm just going to press the V key. Let's try it.
V. Change to list view. Main landmark. Name reverse.
All right, and you can hear it say change to list view. And now take a look. If you're visual and you can see the screen, you can see, wow, we're in a list now, right? Now, instead of moving right, left, up, down in this grid, we can now move up and down, okay? So that's our first recommendation that we got for you. Makes it so much easier, all right? The second thing that we want to talk about is our three main areas of drive. Here, let me pull this
6:30.
back. Hold on.
Speech mode off.
I realize I have two windows up here. Beautiful. There we go. So now let me turn my speech back on.
Speech mode beeps. Speech mode talk.
Perfect. Let's talk about our three main areas of drive. Our first area is this navigation pane. Okay. The navigation pane is where we have our My Drive, shared drives, shared with me, that left side panel right under the new button. The second one is we have our list view, which is this main section where we have our two folders here, documents and my folder. And then the third is our details view, which is over on the right-hand side. Now let's talk about what each of these do. The navigation pane is where we can go to our main sections of Drive. Like I said, we have My Drive, we had shared drives, shared with me, all of those main sections, okay? The list view is where our documents and our folders are gonna live. So we're gonna be spending a lot of time in list view. We're only gonna be going to navigation view when we need to change the main section. And I'll show you that in a second. And then finally, our details view is once we have selected a folder, we can jump over to that details view to see who modified it, when did they modify it, all of those different things, all right? So now how do we jump there? Well, to jump between these three, and this is great because Google has such a great pattern for this. Let's start with navigation. To jump to the navigation or to go to the navigation, it's G and N. That means you're pressing G on your keyboard, letting go, and N on your keyboard, letting go. Why is it G, N? Well, let's go to navigation, right? Let me try it. G, N.
G, N. My Drive Google Drive document.
And you see how I just jumped over to my navigation area, and now I can move through that area with up and down arrow keys. Okay, let me try that.
Shared drives not, computers not selected, shared with me not selected
Okay,
for.
does that make sense? If I wanted to select one of these sections, like if somebody just shared something with me, I would go GN, I would go down to shared with me and I press enter, and then I jump back to list. I'm not going to do that yet though. Now, how do we get to our list section? Let's say somebody shared something with me. I want to go there. I press enter. I need to get to that main content list area where that folder is going to exist. How do I do that? Go to list GL, right? So you're pressing G, letting go, and then really quickly pressing L, letting go.
GL, main landmark, name, reverse sort, direction, owner, last modified file size, region, table. Documents, Google Drive folder.
Right, and I let that go on a little bit so you can kind of hear what it sounds like. This is our list view. And again, if I want to move through this list, thank goodness we changed our view. I can use up and down arrow keys.
My folder, Google Documents, Google Drive folder owned by me.
And notice how now that folder is selection, take a look at that details view over on the right. If you can see it, has now populated. We now have some details in that details view. I'm sure you can guess how we can jump there. Is G and D for go to details.
G, D, details pane, complementary landmark.
All right.
Tab control.
And then it says tab control. It's telling me I can use tab and shift tab to go through. Let me try it.
Clickable complementary landmark sharing info. Who has access, heading level 3 not shared.
All right, and it says who has access not shared. You can go through and see the details on this file, okay? Comrade, it sounded like we had a question or a comment in there. You wanna share with us what people have?
Oh, we actually don't have a question or a comment.
Oh, gotcha, okay, cool. So we'll just move right along then. We have our three views, right? We have our list view, which is our main content, our navigation, which is our main sections of Drive, and then our details view, which is where all of those details exist. Now, what are we going to do with these? Well, let's say we're in my Drive and I want to create a new folder or a new document, right? Now that I can jump between each, I can really quickly get to the place that I want to create that document and create it, right? Now, how do we create a document? Let's say I want to create this document in a shared drive. Let's jump to the navigation section to create this document in a shared drive. Let's do GN.
No more text after a block of links.
So now I've tried this GN command. And remember how I said if commands don't work with Google Drive, what do you do? Well, I need to switch my mode, right? Do you remember us saying that at the beginning? Switching modes is something that is really confusing when you start doing it, but once you get into the routine of it, I promise it gets a lot easier. So listen to what it says again. Let's try it.
No more text after a block of links.
That's interesting. It says no more text after a block of links. It should just jump to that navigation section. Let me try switching my mode. In NVDA, this is the NVDA key plus space. With JAWS, you can either press escape and it should exit you out of the mode that you're in. Or with JAWS, here's the other one, you can turn off your PC cursor with the JAWS key plus Z. Remember, JAWS key or NVDA key is either caps lock or insert. Okay, so if you set up NVDA or JAWS with the caps lock or the insert key as the JAWS key, NVDA key, that's what it's going to be. For me, the NVDA key is caps lock. So I'm going to do caps lock space. You see how you heard that little sound, that little bachoop, right? That means that I've switched modes. I'm now out of the mode that I was in. We don't need to get into the names of modes for right now. Let me try GN again.
GN, navigation landmark.
Amazing. And you see how that one quick, simple fix, now I can go back to my Google specific key commands. All right. Kamran, we have a question.
Yes, we do. And it's from Libby Hansen. And she asks, which keys did you use to change to view again?
Yes, absolutely. To change the view, and this is with any screen reader, this is a Google specific key command. It's just the V key. So if I was here, I can do it at any time. I can just press V.
V. Change to grid view.
And you see how it just changes back to grid view? I press V again.
V. Change to list view.
Change to list
Main
view.
landmark.
Okay. Great question, Libby. Thanks for clarifying that. Cool. So now let's go back to our navigation.
N. Navigation landmark.
If you recall, you remember I was going to shared drives. All right. So I'm going to go up to shared drives. Remember up and down arrow keys. You go down and you can't find it, go up.
Computers not selected. Shared drives not selected. Collapse to grouping. Shared drives. Google Drive doc.
And I'm going to jump to my list in order to, and actually, you know, what's great is Google Drive is super smart. When you select something, it usually jumps to list for you. But just to make sure, I'm going to jump to my list to go into this shared drive that I see.
L.
Perfect. If I don't hear anything, that means I'm already there.
Selected.
I'm going to press enter on my shared drive.
Dismiss. Maria's.
And hopefully you can get a sense of how to move through Drive this way. All right. Now let's say I need to create a document, right? How do we create a document? It's super simple. It's just the C key for create. And what will happen when I press that C key is up in the top left corner. If you're visual, you see that new button. It's just like clicking that new button. It's going to open that new menu. It used to be called create. That's why the key command is C. So I'm going to press C.
C. Menu submenu. Folder 1 of 8.
And it's going to open up this list or this menu of things that I can create. I can create a folder. I can do a file upload. I can do a folder upload. This is from my computer. I can create a Google Doc, sheet, slide, anything I want, right? I'm going to arrow down to Docs.
File upload. Folder upload. Google Docs submenu.
I'm going to press enter.
Menu loading menu submenu.
All right. We have a submenu, which it didn't read, but let's move up and down just to see what our options are.
From a template. Blank document.
We can do from a template or blank document. Of course, I'm going to do blank document for now.
Untitled Google Chrome Coding. Document busy blank. Application. Document content edit multi-line. To enable screen reader support, press Ctrl plus Alt plus Z to learn about keyboard shortcut.
And of course, I'm going to stop here on Docs. I'm going to show you one more thing with Google Drive. We're going to get into a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to take questions, and then we're going to come back to Docs to start in on Google Docs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back to Drive. If you don't know how to jump between tabs in Google Chrome, it's Control and Tab, holding down Control and pressing Tab. It's just like Alt Tab. Okay. So I'm going to pull down Control, press Tab.
Maria's Drive Google Drive document.
And see how it says the tab name? I'm in my Drive. The last thing I want to show you with Drive is our context menu or our action menu. All right. Now, a context menu, if you're not sure, is any menu on the computer that well, I guess let me start with, if you're visual and you right click on something and it opens up, that's your context menu. Okay. It's anything that you right click and that menu pops up. But if you're not visual or you're explaining this to a student, what you'd say is that a context menu is a menu that opens up that gives you all of the different options for a specific thing on the computer. We're gonna open a context menu on something, and it's gonna give us all the options of that thing, right? So the reason I want to show you the context menu is because there's tons of options in Drive in their context menu that is super, super helpful for using it. So let me show you that now. Let me just make sure I'm in the list view, GL.
GL. Main landmark. Name.
All right. I'm not sure where I was, but now I'm in the list. Okay. And I'm going to select a folder here.
English Google Drive folder.
Perfect. I'm in my English folder. All right. Now to open the context menu or the action menu, as it was called previously, it's the A key in Google Drive, A for action.
A. Menu loading menu submenu. Open with submenu 1 of 12.
And as you can see here, I'm just going to read them out. I'm not going to have the screen reader read them for time. But if you do have a question about them, let me know. But we have open with, we have share, we have get link, show folder location, add shortcut to drive, move, add to start, rename is a big one, change color, search within English, and then of course we have download and move to trash. As you can see, a lot of this is really good stuff to know where it is, especially the big ones, right? Are share, rename, move, and download are the big things that you want to make sure that you or your students know how to do. So make sure, you keep track of that. A for context menu. And then obviously, as you get to problems, for example, I want to move this file, you'll be like, oh, I think that's in the context menu, right? So I'm going to leave that there. What I do want to let you guys know, and I'm going to press escape on this screen.
Maria's
and turn off
speech mode off.
What I do want to let you guys know, in case you are not aware, in this Facebook group that we're live streaming right now, we do every week, we do Tech Tip Tuesdays, right? Not sure if you all are aware of that. And this month, for the next 4 weeks, we are doing this topic. So if you do have continued questions on Drive or Docs or slides, right? Remember, we are in the process of producing that. And if you would like to see a specific topic on those, let us know today in these comments, and we can make sure that we add that topic into our Tech Tip Tuesdays. The other thing that we want you to know is that those Tech Tip Tuesdays are actually paired with Screen Reader Tidbits emails. Now, Screen Reader Tidbits are an email list, and we send an email out every Thursday on a specific topic. And as you guessed, our topic this month is Drive, Docs, Sheets, and Slides. If you would like to see an email with key commands, with explanations, with photos, screenshots of how to do specific things, let us know in the comments today. We are still in the process of writing and reviewing these emails. So if you let us know today, hey, I'd like to know about blah, blah, blah in Google Docs, or I'm having trouble with whatever in Google Sheets, right? We can add that into our email. And if you're not subscribed for that, Kamran's going to throw that link in the chat right now. And it sounds like, Kamran, we have a question or a comment too.
No, we don't actually.
No, we don't. Oh, okay. I keep doing that. No problem. But Kamran's going to put our Screen Reader Tidbits sign up link in the chat, so that if you do want a specific question answered, you can sign up for that email list. Hopefully we can get it answered in the email. Okay, cool. So that was our little bit of housekeeping before we move on to Google Docs. From here, I'm gonna move into our tab that we created, the Google Doc that we opened up. And I'm gonna do that the same way I moved from back and forth between tabs, is Control and Tab. So I'm holding down Control and pressing Tab. All right, and I forgot I have my speech off.
Speech mode beeps, speech mode talk.
All right, awesome.
Desktop
Oh, my focus got all messed up. Hold on.
Speech mode off.
There we go. Kamran, we got a question?
We actually have a comment from Tabitha Wyatt, who says,
Yeah.
we are struggling with helping a student navigate into folders for individual classes.
Got it. Navigating into individual folders. Okay, awesome. Let me keep that in the back of my head, Tabitha, and we'll make sure we come back to that. Okay, especially, and Tabitha, make sure that you watch that TV Eyes at Home series, because we really go over that in depth in that series, and how to make a shared drive, and how to navigate through files and folders. I will say, anything with computer instruction or computer literacy, especially with screen readers, is going to include an element of problem solving. So it does take a bit of practice. It's not going to be a quick fix, but for sure you're in the right place. Watch the TV Eyes at Home, and then we're going to loop back to that question, okay? After Google Docs. All right, sweet. So now that I'm all set up, sweet.
Speech mode beeps, speech mode talk.
Now let's talk about some of the barriers or some of the things that go wrong with Google Docs. As you can see, or as you might have heard, or actually, let me try typing something here. Let me just try typing.
No next table.
Interesting. So the first thing, as I'm trying to type in my document, and it's telling me no next table. Already we have a problem, right? The first problem that we have is that screen reader support is not turned on. Now I can tell that two different ways. The first way is visually. If screen reader support is on, I should at the top of my screen have an accessibility menu. If that accessibility menu is there, I know, awesome, Google Docs is ready to read with a screen reader. If it's not there, not ready, okay? The second way that I know is that when I entered Google Docs, it said to enable screen reader support, and it told me how to do it, right? That gives me a clue that screen reader support is not enabled. If it was, it would say screen reader support enabled. So first thing is screen reader support is not enabled. How do we enable it? Control-Alt-Z.
Blank. Screen reader support enabled.
And the two things that I told you happened on my computer, up at the top, we now have an accessibility menu in our menus, and it said screen reader support enabled. So now our first problem is done. Let me try to type in here.
No next table.
Still having the same problem, right? We're still saying no next table, or if I'm typing another word, it's just not working, right? It's just not typing anything in. It's not following. The problem here is the exact same problem we had in Google Drive, is that I am in the wrong mode. Again, like I said, if you don't get modes, I promise if you start using a screen reader, especially on apps like Drive or Docs, you're going to get used to it. It's the same problem. You're going to end up doing it a bunch of times. It's for NVDA key plus space. Oh, hopefully it was that.
Tab. No next form. D.
Okay.
F. D.
There we go.
D.
I don't know where my sound went. Usually it makes a sound, so that's why I'm a little thrown off, but it seemed to work. So in NVDA key plus space with JAWS, it's either escape, or in this case, it would be escape or enter, or with JAWS, easier, it's caps lock and Z, or JAWS key and Z, okay, to turn off the PC cursor. So they've got to work the same way. But now, as you can see, I can now type and I can read in Google Docs.
DFFD.
All right, have my nonsense word here. Cool. Awesome. Now, the other thing that I want to show you before we exit out of Google Docs and we get to your question, Tabitha, is I want to show you how to enable Braille support. Now, this used to be in the accessibility menu, but it has now changed. And it took me a while to find out where it was. But this is for a student. If you have a student using a screen reader and they have a Braille display attached, at this point, I can tell you probably, we'll see when we get into it. It probably won't read at this point on the Braille display, even though the screen reader is able to read and edit the doc. The reason is we have to enable Braille support. Where is that? It's in the tools menu. Okay, now here's a pattern for you. Anytime I go to a menu, it's going to be Alt and then the name of the menu. So for tools, it's going to be Alt and T. For accessibility, Alt and A. For file, it's Alt and F. And that's actually with most programs on a Windows computer. So I'm going to do Alt and T.
Doc, linked objects L.
And my cursor just happens to be there, so it thinks I want to go to link objects, but I'm going to go down to accessibility settings.
Dictionary D control. Translate doc. Voice typing V control. Script editor E. Preferences P. Accessibility settings C.
All right, and I'm going to press enter there.
Accessibility settings dialog.
And I'm going to tab through this dialog.
List. Turn on screen reader support checkbox checked.
We have already turned on screen reader support, right? That's our Control-Alt-Z, so that checkbox is checked. Awesome.
Learn more about screen readers. List. Turn on Braille support checkbox not checked works with third-party.
All right, and this is our checkbox that we need to check if we're using a Braille display. Remember to check a checkbox, it's the space bar.
Space.
And
checked.
we'll move on.
Turn on collaborator announcements checkbox checked no when people.
While we are in here, let's talk about this collaborator announcements. This happens a lot when I'm with a student, especially when just learning to use a screen reader and we are both in the same document. Anytime you get close to your student in the document, it will say, Cody LaPlante is editing this document. and the student is like, wait a minute, hold on, where am I, right? Sometimes that is good, sometimes that is distracting. It is up to you whether or not you want to check or uncheck this box. I'm going to leave this checked for now, but to let you know where that is, it's in Tools, Accessibility Settings. Once I'm good with this dialog box, obviously you see we can turn on screen magnifier support as well in this dialog box, but that's kind of a different topic. But so once we are done with this, we can just press enter to exit.
Document.
Enter to exit.
Doc.
And that's just a little bit about Google Docs. Okay, so let us know any questions. Kamran, do we have any questions or comments so far?
We do. We have a question from Shramaya who asks, question about how to navigate by heading in Google Docs.
That's a great question, Shramaya. It's really not super simple. I will start with that. The thing that I can tell you is that the way that Google Docs, I should start with this. To answer this quickly, what I would say is the way that it works in Word is that you enable that quick key support, and then you can navigate by H and 1 and 2 and 3 like you would on an internet browser. On Google Docs, they don't make it super simple. You have to jump to, you see in the, if you have vision here on my left side, you see where it says summary. If I had headings in this document, we would have those headings in the summary pane, right? It would be heading 1, blah, 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 heading 2, blah, 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 heading 2, blah, blah, blah. I would actually have to jump over to that pane and navigate by heading, okay? I don't know the key commands for that off the top of my head, but we can for sure add those key commands in the description for this video after we wrap up today. But I'll start with this not super easy. If you're trying to do that, what I would recommend is downloading it and using Microsoft Word, unless you get comfortable jumping back and forth from the main content to the side pane to the main content to the side pane. Okay, but we will add those those key commands in to the description. All right, so great question. That's one that comes up a lot. Awesome. Kamran, we good?
Yep.
Awesome, sweet. So we'll just move right along and let's get to Tabitha's question here. I'm going to turn off, well, I'll leave speech on. So Tabitha asked, how do we assist in helping a student navigate between folders for certain classes? And actually, the reason that we're in this shared drive is exactly to show you that, right? So let me jump back to my Google Drive tab.
Maria's Drive, Google Drive document.
Awesome.
Main landmark.
And you can see I set up this shared drive as if, and this is a fake shared drive, but as if it was a student's shared drive for their classes, for Maria's classes. And we have algebra, English, government, science, Spanish, right? Now, the question, I guess, is how do we now, first question is how do we set it up, right? And how do you set it up is a really hard question to answer because it depends on the class. A lot of times what I usually do is I set it up by date that the teacher is going to go over that content. So if we go into, let's say, algebra, Google, you can either set it up by date or by topic, right? So let's see how I did it here. I don't remember.
Working. Dismiss. Main landmark. Name.
Oh, that's right. Or you can do this really cool system that I forgot about. So you can either set it up by date that the teacher is going over it. You can set it up by content, or by topic, right? So if you're doing like dilation 1 week in algebra, and then you're moving on to slope, you can have a folder for dilation, you can have a folder for slope. Or if your student is super advanced, we came up with this really cool system. I won't go over it now because it sounds like you're struggling with the student a little bit, but it is in that TVIs at Home series. So take a look at that. Now that's the first thing. How do you set it up? Depends on the class. You can do it by topic. You can do it with the system. You can do it by date. And then it's important to clean this folder up so that there's not a million folders in there or documents in there, right? So I usually have like an archive folder for each class. That's the first thing. The second thing is just to practice going back and forth between our navigation area, our list area, different folders, things like that. If your student is struggling, what I usually do, and this is for all computer instruction, is take a step back and don't use it for class yet. Because what happens is when we start a new topic in technology and we say, we're going to use this in your algebra class, there's a lot going on. The student has to learn how to use Google Drive. They have to learn how to use Google Docs, right? Which is a totally different piece of software. And then they also have to learn algebra, right? Or whatever class they're in. Instead, what I usually do is I'll start a journal prompts section, right? A journal prompts folder as practice. And as part of our service, I'll put our journal prompt, a document in there with a question that they need to answer. And they can get practice going into Drive, going into journal prompts, going into the document, right? Renaming the document, adding text to the document, right? All of these are just Google Drive, and they're not worried about learning the content for English or learning the content for social studies. And there's not this pressure of, we need to get this done today. If we don't get it done, we have to do it tomorrow, right? If you're doing this as practice, as a journal prompts, as part of your service, if you don't get it done, who cares? You move on to the next journal prompt, right? It just takes a lot of pressure off you, and it takes a lot of pressure off the student, okay? But it really is about practicing going back and forth between navigation and list and going through folders and backing out of folders. I forgot to tell you how to back out of folders. It's Alt and left arrow. So let's say I want to go back to my shared drive. I'm going to do Alt and left arrow, same command as back on the internet, right? Holding down Alt, pressing left arrow.
Grouping. Main landmark.
All right. Getting practice with skills like that is going to be without pressure of we need to do this for class, is usually where I start to find success with students. Again, it's going to take a little bit of time for some students, but it really is worth investing in it. So don't give up on it. Okay. I hope I answered your question. Yeah. So, okay. I love that you asked it. Really tough question, but I love tough questions. Okay. Sweet. Now, before we move on to Google Slides, I'm going to talk a little bit about our mini course. So if you're not involved in, or if you haven't been to the IT Learning Portal, the IT Learning Portal is our website. And if you don't know a lot about us, we sell courses on screen reader instruction, and our free mini course, it's called Introduction to Screen Reader Instruction. And it gives you the tools that you need to begin the process of teaching your student how to use a screen reader. Mainly what I would say is it's the guide for you to read the JAWS or the NVDA or the Chromebox manual, right? There you'll get all of our screen reader cheat sheets. That's using screen readers on the internet. That's JAWS on the internet, NVDA on the internet, Chromebox on the internet. All of those cheat sheets come in Braille format. They come in doc format, like Microsoft Word or Google Doc, and they come in PDF format, okay? You'll also get our screen reader skills progression. That's our whole scope and sequence for how to teach a screen reader, from the beginning to, turning on a screen reader all the way to figuring out how to access accessible or inaccessible documents with OCR. So it's really a huge progression. And all of this is free. All you need to do is sign up on the IT Learning Portal, and Kamran will put that link in the description. So take a look at that as well. All free. All you need to do is make an account. All right. Awesome. Now let's move on to Google Slides here. Let me turn off my speech.
Speech mode off.
All right. And Kamran, it sounds like we have a question, or no?
We do. We have a comment from Tabitha, and she says, "Thank you so much. You are loading me with a wealth of information."
Awesome. I love to hear it. Sweet. No problem, Tabitha. I appreciate the question. Of course, now I need to switch my program focus over. We got a lot of things. Whenever you're live streaming, you have a lot of things open on your computer. Sometimes your computer struggles. And let me jump down to our Google Slides section. Now, Kamran has a link that he's going to drop in the chat. That link is where I sourced all of this information on Google Slides, right? So the first thing to know is that all of the information that we give you guys, it comes from Google. So don't think that we are the only place that you can get information. What we do is especially like when we put together a presentation like this, I'll look at the information that Google has, and we'll start to put it together to make sense of it so that we can explain it in a way that is not just reading a list of key commands. But if you do want more information, or you do want to read that list of key commands, or you do want somewhere to go, we want to make sure that you guys have that information. I'm going to show that to you in Google Slides, but we also want to make sure that you have the doc as well. Okay. So let me turn off NVDA for a second. There we go. Boom. So Cameron's going to put that in the chat, and we're going to move on to a Google slide. Okay. And of course, as I say, Google, all of the Googles in my house, perk up. All right, let me turn back on NVDA. Just had to rearrange a few things here. And in order to get to our Google slide, our Google slide presentation that we're going to be sampling today, it's in shared with me because I actually shared it with this account earlier today. So this is a good practice, or a good little extra demo. So you can see me going from shared drives to shared with me, which means I'm going to have to go to that navigation side, or that navigation pane. Let me make sure that my program focus is all set, because I know I messed it up. Alt and tab.
Tab, Notes, Google Docs, Google Chrome, row 1, Office, Maria's Drive, Meeting Controls, row, Maria's Drive, Google Drive, Maria's Drive.
You heard Maria's Drive. I'm going to stop there. Now, let me jump to navigation to get to shared with me. Remember, shared with me is one of our main sections of Drive. I have to go to the navigation section. Let's see if it works.
GN, Navigation Landmark, Folders and Views, Tree View, Level 1, Shared Drives not selected.
Right, I'm in shared drives. I'm going to arrow down to shared with me.
Computers not shared with me not selected, 4 of 8 level.
And I'm going to press enter there.
Grouping, shared with me, Google Drive document, main landmark, name shared by, share date, reverse sort direction.
Right, awesome. By the way of how it's telling me, what it's telling me, I can tell that I'm in the list view. But if you're not sure, you can always do GL.
L.
Doesn't say anything. I know I'm in list view. I'm going to down arrow.
Selected. Untitled Google Chrome coding. Document busy blank.
All right. And I have a sample slide.
Application.
Open. All right. This one is called Screen Reader Instruction for Resistant Learners. It might sound familiar to you guys. We're going to talk about, we're going to talk about this presentation and when this
Braille support
is actually
enabled.
happening. My goodness, he really just loves to talk. We're going to talk about when this presentation is happening a little later. So, but this is the slide that we're going to be using for today. Let me get out of this dialog box here.
Learn more. Privacy settings. I understand, but document.
All right, and I'm going to start right here where it says document. Now, again, we want to make sure before we even get into anything, there's a special set of key commands that seem to be really prominent in Google Slides. A special set, I should say, of modifier keys. Now, if you're not sure what a modifier key is any key that you're holding down on the keyboard and pressing with another key to make something happen. So a great example of a modifier key is shift, right? We're holding down shift and pressing a letter, it makes a capital letter. It changes or modifies what that letter does, right? Our modifier keys are Control, Alt, Shift, function, if you're on a Windows computer, Windows. If you're using NVDA or JAWS, that caps lock or that insert key become a modifier key. It becomes the NVDA or JAWS modifier key. So that's kind of a brief explanation of what actually a modifier key is. And in Google Slides, to get back to that, there is a special set of modifier keys that usually are used. And it's always Control, Alt, and Shift. If you take a look at that link that Kamran just dropped in the chat, you'll see that there's so many Control, Alt, Shift key commands in Google Slides. So what I do when I introduce slides to a learner is I say, hey, guess what? You're going to be doing a lot of Control, Alt, Shift in Google Slides. Why do I do that? Well, because then if a student forgets a key command, they're like, Google Slides, Control, Alt, Shift. Okay, so it must be Control, Alt, Shift something. Let me try Control, Alt, Shift, P, right? So making that pattern available right at the beginning helps to make sure that we can guess that key command, right? So we're going to be using a lot of Control, Alt, Shift key commands. Now, we'll start with our two main areas here. We always want to talk about what our screen setup is like. We have, as with Drive, two main areas of our screen. The first is the canvas, and I'm sure you can guess which area that is, but if you can't, that's fine. It's the main slide, right? So my canvas right now is showing my title slide. It says screen reader instruction for resistant learners, and it says IT up at the top, right? So we have, that's our canvas. And then our other section is our film strip. Our film strip is the list of all of the slides that we have available to us, okay? We also have our speaker notes down at the bottom, but today we're going to talk about just getting into slides, and I would say just reading slides. So if a teacher posts a slide presentation, that a learner could go in and figure out what's going on, maybe add some text, right? Our speaker notes, more advanced, we're not going to touch on that today, but of course it's in that link that Kamran shared, okay? So, awesome. Kamran, do we have a question?
No, we don't actually.
No, we don't. Okay, we're all good? Oh, our
Cody,
camera came off.
Yes.
Gotcha, okay. Hold on one second. I'll just do it without the camera. It's fine. My mic is okay?
Yes.
Beautiful, awesome. I'm just gonna do it without the camera. And you guys know what I look like. I'm sure it's fine. So I'm just gonna keep going. All right, cool. So we have our canvas, we have our film strip, right? So our canvas is this main title slide section. And our film strip is the list of all the slides. Speaker notes we're not gonna worry about. Now, like I said, we're gonna do Control-Alt-Shift and a key command in order to jump between these two sections. As with Google, our pattern is really easy. It's going to be Control-Alt-Shift, and guess what? C to jump to our canvas. Let's try it.
Canvas.
Easy. Holding down Control, holding down Alt, holding down Shift, and pressing C to go to canvas. Same thing for our film strip. What do you guys think it is? Control-Alt-Shift, and F to go to film strip.
Tree view. Slide 1.
All right.
Screen reader instruction.
Now you can see how this would be pretty helpful. If I wanted to edit my canvas, it's going to be Control-Alt-Shift-C, and I'm going to start moving through my canvas. But if I want to switch slides, I can do Control-Alt-Shift-F and use up and down arrow key to go through my slides. All right. So let's say I want to go to another slide. I'm in my film strip. I just jumped there. I'm going to move down to slide, I don't know, move down to slide 3.
Slide 2. Slide 3.
We'll go to slide
Why
4.
are our learners? Slide 4.
All right. Now that I'm in slide 4, I can jump to my my canvas, my main slide section, Control-Alt-Shift-C.
Document content edit read only multi-line tree view text box level 1 what we will do.
And it's telling me a lot of stuff, but we're in our canvas. All right, I promise you that. Now, if you don't want to jump back and forth like that, there is a shortcut to this. I'm usually against shortcuts. I'd rather tell you the long way to do it, but just in case you want to use it, if we want to use our, we want to change our slide without jumping to the film strip, we are going to use function and the up and down arrow key to do page up, page down. Sometimes it's different on your keyboard. It might not be function and up and down arrow key, but you're aiming for page up, page down. All right. So if I use page up,
blank, slide 3,
or
tree view
down.
Text box level 1 what we will do.
All right. So it works the same way, but I want to make sure that you know how to flip back and forth just in case that page up, page down is either number 1, not on your keyboard, or it's not function and arrow keys. All right. Now, how do we move through our canvas? Well, it's really simple. There's a couple of rules to it, but I'm sure you'll get it really quick. To move back and forth between our elements, that means between any images we have, between any text boxes we have, it's going to be tab and shift tab. So I'm going to go tab to move forward through our. Awesome. As with anything, sometimes we experience a couple of technical difficulties, but the good news is that while we were out, I had time to change the battery in my camera. So now you guys can see me again. So that's good news. I'm going to try to jump right into where we lost each other. Kamran, what was the last thing that you heard me say?
You cut off when you were talking about the Google Slides, specifically
Yep.
about the two main areas, Canvas and film strip.
Awesome. So just to make sure we are on the same page, let me just go back to that area. And while I was gone, were there any questions or comments?
Yes, there were actually. So
Okay, cool. Let's hear
one
them.
comment from Michelle Czar, who said, so much good info being covered. Thank you. And
Absolutely,
another
Michelle.
question by Tabitha Wyatt, who said, is there a way to navigate between text boxes that the teacher has created that the students have to fill in?
Yes, absolutely, Tabitha. Sweet. So yes, this reminds me of where I was too. So let me share my screen here, and let me turn on NVDA to answer Tabitha's question. And actually, Tabitha, that is the next thing we are doing. So you are right on it, reading my mind. Boom. All right, we should have a screen share. Awesome. All right, so let me turn on NVDA. All right, switch my program focus.
Meeting con eye.t slide deck Google Slides eye.t
Right,
slide
so now we're right
eye.t.
in it. I'm gonna move down to my fourth slide, and I'm gonna answer your question, Tabitha. I'm gonna use my page up and page down, but remember, you can jump out of the film strip, go down to slide 4, and jump back to the canvas. Both work fine, all right?
Tree view text box level 1 screen blank. Slide 3. Tree view text box level 1. Why are our learners resistant? Slide 4.
Awesome. And I should still be in the canvas. And Tabitha, the way that you would do this is if a teacher did put text boxes where the students needed to fill in information, you would navigate those text boxes the exact same way that I told you before. You're going to move tab to move to forward to the next text box and shift tab to move backwards. Now, what if you wanted to edit them? Well, let's move into a text box.
Tree view level 1. What? Give you a framework to use that.
And it's going to read that whole text box. I just press control there. Let's say I want to edit this text box. The rule is it's enter to edit and escape to navigate. So if I want to start editing this edit box or this text box, I'm going to press enter here.
Document content edit multi.
Now I'm going to press control here just to kind of keep going. But the important thing to note is that look at everything is selected in my text box. So it's important to let your student know, hey, guess what? When you enter a text box, everything is going to select. So if you press one letter,
H. Selection removed.
Selection removed. Oh my gosh, right? Of course, as we know, we can do Control Z and it's not that big of a deal, but it will, you know, it's important to let your student know that because eventually they're going to be like, what's going on, right? So I'm going to do Control Z here.
Give you a framework to use that.
And I'm back to entering my edit box. Everything is selected. How do we not erase everything? You can just do your right arrow key here.
List item level 2.
And I'm at the very end of my edit box. If you press that right arrow key, you're going to be at the end of your edit box. If you press the left, you're going to be at the beginning. Okay. So if your student's teacher, Tabitha, puts an edit box in there and they want the student to edit in that edit box, you're going to do enter to start editing. You press that right arrow key, and now I can start typing. Let's try it.
T.
Hopefully. There we go. My computer's moving a little slow today. Sweet. All right. And what did I say?
Test.
I'm going to escape out of that or erase that. What did I say? Enter to edit and escape to navigate. So if I want to if I want to stop editing this edit box, this text box, I'm going to press escape. And I should be able to move back and forth between my edit boxes again.
Tab.
Oh, hopefully.
Exited text selection bullet. Give you a.
And tab to my next edit box. Okay, sounds good. NVDA has really given up, isn't it? Honestly, hopefully this doesn't happen to you, but honestly, it's because we're running a lot of streaming software. We have Zoom going, we have the camera going. So don't think that this is going to happen to you, I promise. All right, cool. So that's kind of how to edit, right? The last thing that I want to show you. Yeah. The last thing that I want to show you is if your learner just wants to read this slide presentation without moving through pages, if they just want a big, huge, long document, to enter that mode, it's called HTML mode. It's Control Alt Shift. There's our Control Alt Shift again, and P.
eye.t slide deck Google Slides document. eye.t slide deck Google Slides.
And as you can see now, instead of having a big long, going back to this film strip, moving to the next slide, going back to the canvas, or using the page up, page down, you can now read up and down arrow key.
Slide content out of region slide list with 4.
And you can just read this whole slide deck with your reading commands with Control down arrow key or just down arrow key. All right. That's a really easy, really simple modification or simple piece of instruction that you can give your learner that will make reading a Google slide that they don't have to edit in really easy. So if this is just a Google slide, they just need to read and get the information. Best way to do it, Control Alt Shift and P. I lied. The last thing that I want to show you. Let me jump back there. Well, we might have reached NVDA's breaking point with all of this other software running. But the last thing that I want to tell you, at least, is if you do, if you are in slides and you're like, oh my gosh, what is that key command that we went over? You can use Control and Slash to open up a big list of key commands, and it will be the exact same information that Kamran actually put in that chat when we started on Google Slides. So that's a really great piece of information, and that's actually the key command for every single Google product. So if you have a if you want to take a look at a key command in Google Docs and you're in Google Docs, Control Slash, right? If you want to remember a key command in Google Sheets, Control Slash, right? If you remember our email series that we just did in February, that one is a little different. It's question mark, but you get the idea, question mark, and you get a whole list of key commands right in the app. You don't have to Google anything. Okay, so that's another really great key command. As we wrap up, let me turn off NVDA.
Exit NVDA dialog. What would
and now my computer should run much better. And Kamran, we got a question.
Yes, we have a question from Mai, who asks, what was that command? Control Alt Shift T?
Control Alt Shift P as in print. P as in print. Great question. I have no idea why they chose Control Alt Shift and P. I haven't found a pattern there yet. It's just one that you're going to have to memorize. Good thing it utilizes our Control Alt and Shift though. So great question. Awesome. Any other questions, Kamran?
No.
Awesome. Well, if you did join us today live, I really appreciate you all coming and asking questions. It's great to hear feedback or anything that you guys want to see. Some things that I want to mention. This slide deck that we were using, it's called Screen Readers Instruction for Resistant Learners. This is brand new instruction. So this is not our regular IT spiel. This is like a new topic that we're really excited about presenting. And it's actually going to be the first time that we're going to present this is going to be this Saturday at the Maryland, DC AER conference. Good news is it's virtual. Okay. This is a virtual conference and it's super cheap. It's ACVREP credit for if you're in state in Maryland and DC and you're an AER member, it's completely free. If you're out of state and you're an AER member, it's $10. And if you're not a member of AER, if you're not affiliated with AER at all, it's $25. Okay. So we're going to put that link in the description of this video. Yeah, we would love for you guys to come out. Our session on screen reader instruction for resistant learners is at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time on Saturday, March 12th. Let me tell you a little bit about this presentation because we're really excited about it. This is pretty much the presentation, the method that you want to use if you have a student that's either dual media or is really resistant to screen reader instruction, right? This is for students that really think that they are good using 72 point font, right? And when we say hey, maybe it's time to switch over to a screen reader. They're like, no, I've tried JAWS. I don't like it, right? So this is for those students. What do we actually do? I'm going to show you kind of just what I will promise in this presentation. The first thing is the caveats. I don't want to overpromise. So I want to make sure that you guys know what this is. This is a system or a framework that may feel like it's not working. It might not work. It requires a lot of patience and it requires really strong rapport with your student, but it also puts control in the hands of the learners. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about two main indicators that your student is going to grade themselves on. And we're also going to give you a data sheet so that you can track that data and have really in-depth conversations with your learners saying, hey, guess what? On indicator 1, with that task, you scored yourself really low. And on indicator 2, you were there's some room for improvement. What can we change about your setup so that we can get these scores a little bit higher, right? And if they're like, let's make things larger, great, let's make things larger. Do the task again, grade your indicators. What do you grade yourself? Still really low, what can we change? And when we get to a point where I don't know what to do, let me show you something. Show them something really simple with NVDA or JAWS or Chromebox or whatever you have, and then say, now grade yourself. Was your task completion better? Scale of 1 to 5. Was your posture better? Scale of 1 to 5. And it's just a framework that gives you the tools so that you can put control in the hands of the learners. So you're not saying, I know that you can't see that, right? Because that's really not a good thing. We don't want to be saying that to students because we don't know, right? But it's also a framework that you can still maintain the rapport with your student and build the rapport with your student while coaching them and guiding them through this really tough journey. If you are interested in this, Maryland, DC AER, March 12th. You can also Google it. You can find it on Google, but we'll put the link below. And it's at 10:30, free for AER members in state, $10 for AER members out of state, and $25 for non-AER members. All right, so that's that presentation. I just wanted to plug that a little bit. And of course, next Thursday, I wanted to make sure because we just changed the date. Next Thursday, March 17th, we're starting a brand new strategy with IT called IT Live Rooms. Now with this, obviously you can interact with us through our chat function, and that's great. But if you want to ask a question in person, as in you want to come to a Zoom meeting, a Zoom-like meeting, and say, hey, Cody, I have this really specific student. What do you think? That's what IT Live Rooms is going to be. It's going to be me sitting in a Facebook room in this Facebook group and waiting for people to come and ask me questions, right? It's going to be an hour. I'll be there at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're on the Facebook group, you will get a message on your Facebook Messenger app that the room is open, and I'll be there for an hour and be available to answer any questions that you guys have. We would love to have you guys come out, especially if you're struggling with a particular learner or a particular topic, okay? Before we wrap up, Kamran, do we have any other questions or comments?
Yeah, so we have a question from Melissa Berger who asks, is it possible to turn off the sounds that occur when you switch modes?
Got it. That's a great question. There might be a way to do that. I've never seen it done, but that would be a great question. I'm curious to see, Melissa, if you're worried that the sound is turned off and how to get it back on, or if you're thinking about turning the sound off, right? Which one that is. It's really a good question. I've never had somebody ask me that before, but great question. We'll definitely look into that and put the answer in the comments of this video after we post it. Okay, cool. Any other questions there, Kamran?
Yes, so we have one question from Laura Dubel who asks,
okay,
like they have used the letter P because it reads the full presentation.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Control-Alt-Shift-P for presentation. Well, that's silly. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Awesome. Any other questions or comments, Kamran?
Yeah, and Melissa commented, my student cannot handle sounds.
I see. That's a great question. I don't know, Melissa. I would have to get back to you on that, but we'll for sure post that in the comments after we put the recorded session up. If you do want to watch this recorded session, it should be in the same place you're watching it now. In the Facebook group, you're going to go to more, and then media, and then videos. Okay. And that's where that will be. We also are going to be putting this up on our YouTube channel as well in the next couple of weeks. So look out for that. Hopefully with the middle section where we cut off. Right. So, okay, cool. Kamran, we're all good.
Yep, we're all good.
Awesome. Okay. With that, we'll sign off and keep in touch with us either through Facebook rooms, or I'm sorry, IT Live rooms, which is going to be next Thursday, March 17th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We would love to see you this Saturday for Maryland, DC AER to come and show your support there. And then, of course, we love having you guys a part of the Facebook group. If you do have any other questions and it's just we don't have something going on, put it in our discussion. We are super engaged in making sure that we answer all of the questions in our discussion and get our feedback. So we really appreciate you all. With that, we're going to sign off. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you for the next IT Live. All right.